Good evening. Are we? Good evening. And welcome to the Ranked Choice Voting Informational Webinar hosted by Assemblymember Rodney Spichard Hermelin and Robin Redmond of the Flatbush Development Corporation. You may or may not have heard about the new voting process in New York City called Ranked Choice Voting. The purpose of this webinar today is to help voters clearly understand the new changes and how to cast their vote with confidence. We will also share with you other important information that you need to know about the election process. A portion of our program this evening will be translated into 3 different languages. We have Nerlin Desrameaux translating in Haitian Creole, Susie Roman translating in Spanish, and Naushin Ali translating in Urdu. Instructions will be provided at the time translation is available. Before we get started, I would like to welcome Assemblymember Rodney Spichard Hermelin, who will share a message with you. Bear with me one moment while we queue up Assemblymember Rodney Spichard Hermelin. Bear with me one moment.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us for Ranked Choice Voting Informational Webinar. My name is Assemblymember Rodney Spichard. I represent the 22nd Assembly District, includes Flatbush, East Flatbush, Pittswood, and Nicholas Park. I want to first acknowledge our community partner, Robin Redmond, and the Flatbush Development Corporation. I would also like to thank Debbie Lewis from Rank the Vote New York City and Valerie Vasquez Diaz from the New York City Board of Election. This year, our ballots will look a little different. That's because the New York City Council voted to implement ranked choice voting. Ranked choice voting is a system of ranking up to 5 candidates in order of preference. Voters will be able to rank candidates running for mayor, public advocate, comptroller, borough president, and state council. Please note that state elections such as judges and district attorney candidates will not use ranked choice voting. You will only need to vote for one candidate. If you want to find out who is on your ballot for each of these positions, you can go to ballotpedia.org and find a New York sample ballot. If you are not registered with a party, such as Democrat or Republican, you cannot vote in the primary election on June 22nd. However, the general election is on November 2nd, for all registrants of all parties. Your voice and your vote matters. Although this ranked system of voting is different from what many of you are familiar with, I do not want to intimidate you from casting your vote. And the good news is you can vote either at the polls or by absentee ballot. We have some great experts with us tonight who will explain the new process. But before we get to that, I want to share some news. The New York State Legislature recently passed my bills to expand voting access. One bill will allow voters to electronically request an absentee ballot, eliminating the requirement for an in-person signature. A second measure would eliminate the need to request an absentee ballot via signed application, which allow voters to request a ballot by signed letter and require mail ballots postmarked through Election Day to be counted. What this means for you is that the option to request a ballot is still available via the web portal. like it was during the federal election year, which was last year. Voting is the foundation of our democracy. These bills help to make sure that more votes are counted and that votes are not discarded because of mere technicalities that are no fault of the voter. We will continue to ensure that only qualified voters cast a ballot. There is no change to that. I also want to share key dates with you. May 28th, voter registration deadline. June 15th, absentee ballot request deadline. You can request on the BOE site. June 12th is when early voting starts. June 20th is when early voting ends. June 22nd, election day and absentee ballot return deadline. If you have any questions, I encourage you to visit the Board of Election website, vote.nyc, or to ask our panelists this evening. Again, thank you for joining us. I hope that everyone who is eligible will make it to the polls on June 22nd, knowing what to expect on their ballot. My name is Assemblymember Radis Bishart, and thank you again for joining us today.
Okay, thank you, Assemblymember Rodney Bishart Hermelin. So we now have, and we are delighted to have Flatbush Development Corporation as our partner this evening, Robin Redmond, who is the Executive Director of Flatbush Development Corp., also known as FDC. Her team has always been a great partner in many events that we have hosted and is known for doing excellent work in the community. I would like to now welcome Robin Redmond to share a few words. Robin?
Thank you, Lisa, for that lovely introduction. I'd like to say good evening and thank you to everyone for joining us. We are very excited to be here tonight. My name is Robin Redmond. I am the Executive Director of FDC. First I want to thank the Assembly member for partnering with FDC on tonight's—
Robin, I'm sorry, we can't hear you too well. Can you please try that again?
Sure. I said at first I would like to thank the Assembly member, Rodney Bishart, for inviting us to be her partner on this very important event. Ranked choice voting is here. So tonight's webinar is going to help us weed through those.
You're out again, Robin.
I'm hoping that tonight's webinar will help us the questions and answers that we have about ranked choice voting. And I'm personally excited to learn more about this process. I'd like to thank our presenters for being here. So our presenting partners, Rank the Vote NYC, and the Board of Elections. And I really want to also thank our amazing translation team for allowing this webinar to reach the greater Flatbush community. So without further ado, I am happy to put this back to you, Lisa, because I'm really excited to get started with tonight's presentation. Thank you again for being here this evening, and I look forward to learning more tonight.
Thank you, Robin, for sharing that information. We're now approaching the part of this program, which is the reason why you're here this evening. This portion of the program has the option of translation now. So you can please select the globe either at the bottom or the top of your screen and select your language of choice. Tonight we have Valerie Vasquez Diaz, who's the Director of Communications and Public Affairs of the New York City Board of Elections. She will share some important information about what you need to know for the coming election. Welcome, Valerie.
Thank you for having me. I also want to thank the Assembly member for organizing this event. Events just like this are really the cornerstone of making sure that this election is successful. We at the Board of Elections are very focused on public education and reaching all voters to let them know about ranked choice voting. All registered voters would have received the mid-April a direct mailing that had some information about ranked choice voting, as well as a personalized fast pass tag. We launched this really last year, and we found it to be very, very successful. It allows for voters to check in contactless. So you can bring this card with you. If you bring it with you to the polls on election day, it's not required, but if you bring it with you to the polls on election day, you present it, and the poll worker will scan it and check you in and allow you to begin the process of casting your ballot. As the Assembly member mentioned, there are some key dates that are very, very important. First being May 28th. In order for a voter to participate in a primary, they have to be registered to one of the parties that is conducting the primary. The deadline to register is May 28th. So we encourage anyone who wants to participate in the June primary to get their voter registration form in as soon as possible. As far as the absentee process, we have the ability, thankfully, as the Assembly member mentioned, voters can choose to vote from the privacy of their own home. They can vote safely from home if they choose. They can, in fact, visit our website, vote.nyc, put in their information, the information as it appears on your voter registration, so your name, address, and then we will send you the ballot to the address where you asked us to send it to. So it can, if you're out of town or if you are home, you can send it there. One of the options now is actually a temporary measure due to COVID, so you can select that box as well. We also have early voting. The commissioners, the Board of Elections of the City of New York recently announced an additional 10 hours of early voting, bringing our total to 83 hours, which is actually the most in the state of New York. So we're very proud of that. And it really just allows voters to go on to vote at a time that's convenient to them. So there are weekend hours, there are early morning and evenings. So if you visit vote.nyc, there's a tab where you can find your assigned early voting location. We announced at our meeting 2 weeks ago that we now have a total of 104 early voting sites across the city of New York. You have to vote at your assigned early voting site, and very often your early voting site differs from your election day site. So we are asking all voters to visit the website, or if you don't have internet access, you can call us at 866-VOTE-NYC, and we have call takers that can assist the voter. And on election day, polls are open from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Again, you have to go to your assigned election day site. By visiting that website, you'll get your early voting location, your election day location, and you also can view a sample ballot. We do encourage everyone to avail themselves of that, so that way you can really get a sense of the ballot before walking into the polls on election day. In terms of the education that the board has done, although we're not required under the charter, we're not mandated for public education, that actually falls under NYC votes and campaign finance, but the commissioners are very, very committed to public education. And that is why we have a multi-level public education campaign that reaches New York City voters via print publications, digital publications, social media as well. We took ads starting early April and running all the way through election day in citywide newspapers, in community-based local newspapers, as well as the covered languages. In addition to the print and digital buy, we took digital ads out of home in link kiosks across all 5 boroughs. I mentioned previously that we sent out a mailing to all registered voters. So that was a direct mail that helped them, introduced ranked choice voting to them in April. And in addition to that, we at the board created palm cards. This is the first time that we have such an educational tool at a poll site. It's actually small palm cards in the covered languages that gives some instructions to the voter. Simple tips such as the fact that they can rank up to 5, but they have the ability to choose less than 5 candidates if they choose. We ask that they do not vote from one candidate in multiple rankings, or that they do not vote for multiple candidates and give them the same ranking, meaning don't vote for 3 candidates and give them all that number 1 ranking, because that would be an overvote. And most importantly, events like these really, on a grassroots level, we find that voters learn and become more comfortable with this, with any voting with any change in the voting system by listening to their peers and family members. So we ask that everyone who's watching this tonight, this webinar, essentially help us spread the word and the awareness of ranked choice voting. I think it's also important to note the dates of early voting are June 12th through the 20th, and election day is the 22nd. When you go onto our website, vote.nyc, you would put in your address and your sample ballot would essentially populate. And what that means is you will actually be able to see exactly what your ballot will look like. Electronically, you'll see it on your screen, whether it's from your phone, your iPad, or your computer. And it really gives you an ability to become comfortable with it before election day. I think it's also important to note that for Democratic voters in all 5 boroughs, there will be, the ballot itself will be 2 sheets, front and back. So again, there will be directions. The poll workers are trained, but again, just viewing your sample ballot in advance, we think is actually going to be something that will be very helpful to the voters. Although this is the first time we are doing a citywide ranked choice voting, an election using ranked choice voting, we have conducted a total of 4 special elections between February and March in the borough of Queens and the Bronx using ranked choice voting. And I know Debbie will go into more detail on the poll, the survey that they did, but ultimately voters felt comfortable with ranked choice voting. They found the ballot to be clear and they were aware of it. So I think I touched on all of the important aspects of ranked choice voting and the Board of Elections. Well, one other thing, and the Assembly member did say this, but it bears repeating, that not every contest is in fact, will be using ranked choice voting. So ranked choice voting only applies to contests for mayor, public advocate, controller, borough president, and city council. So there will be other contests on the ballot, whether judges or district attorney. That will be the traditional form of voting where a voter would only select one candidate. So thank you for having me here tonight. I will be available for any additional questions. And again, it's my honor to be here, and I look forward to speaking to you further. If you have any questions, you feel free to ask.
Thank you, Valerie, for that information. We do appreciate that. And it's good to know that we have these features and we're getting more and more new features as we go along from the Board of Elections, so that's great. We do want to move into the next phase of this program that will teach you a little bit about the ranked choice voting, which is why we're here today. You may have noticed that we slowed down the pace a little bit, and we needed to do that because we have the translators here. So we'll be going just a little bit slower so that everyone who is participating on this call today will be able to capture all the information that we have. So bear with us. Next, we will hear from Debbie Lewis, who is a lead organizer for Rank the Vote New York City, an organization that has taken on the role of getting this information out about this important change in voting, ranked choice voting. Welcome, Debbie.
Thank you so much for having me, Lisa. I was like trying to catch my breath. It's been a long day, and Valerie, you shared so many good tidbits about ranked choice voting. I was like taking some notes. So thank you for that. Again, my name is Debbie Lewis. I am the lead organizer at Rank the Vote NYC. In the chat, I did drop a link to a mock election that we are running right now for the most influential New York City woman, past and present. We will be going through the results during the presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can start this training so you know exactly how ranked choice voting will work. So a quick recap on the upcoming changes to our local elections. Due to a costly low turnout runoff election that was held for public advocate and comptroller, it prompted a debate over the use of runoff elections. So our current Manhattan Borough President, former CC member, Gail Brewer, introduced the first RCV bill. At that time, the Charter Revision Commission decided to hold multiple public hearings, hear from experts, and accept testimonies on a wide variety of issues before presenting RCV to voters. I do remember being one of those folks who voiced my opinion in 2017 about RCV. In 2019, the Charter Revision Commission put RCV before New York City voters, and that referendum passed with nearly 75% of the vote. So now we have our first RCV elections. So why are we here? The conjunction of our robust campaign finance system and the implementation of term limits has led to a wealth of diverse candidates who, under the current system, would risk splitting the vote. Under the current system of voting, city council members are elected with a plurality, which simply means that candidates can win with as little as 20% of the vote. Now, city council members, borough presidents, mayors, comptrollers, they can all win with a plurality. But now ranked choice voting changes that. So what's changing? Starting on January 1st, 2021, for all local primary and special elections, for city council, borough president, public advocate, comptroller, and mayor, they will all be ranked choice voting elections. So runoffs are now eliminated and candidates will need to win with at least 50% plus one of the vote. Voters will now have the option to rank up to 5 candidates, including a write-in if they choose. But in some races, there are just 2 candidates or 3. And in those instances, you can rank your 3s, your 4s, or even your 2s plus a write-in. So election day, this was touched on many times. So I'll just say this. Please remember, if you moved during the pandemic or since the last time you voted, you have to do a change of address form. That must be postmarked and sent in by June 2nd. That is the deadline, right? So what is ranked choice voting? For voters, it's exactly what it sounds like. You are ranking your candidates in order of preference. So your first choice candidate is one that you love. You can think about it this way. This is the person you would do everything for. You volunteer, give money, GOTV. And let's just say if you had a Mercedes-Benz, you might put a bumper sticker on that car because you love that person. You don't care if there's going to be a mark. That is your person. You want to see them in office. Your second choice candidate, you can think about it this way, is the person that would serve as a backup choice if your first choice candidate had to call off their campaign today. Fortunate enough for us, 3, 4, and 5 serves as additional backups. And so if you want to go to 5, you absolutely can. If you still want to vote for one person, you can do that as well. So I am going to play the short video. It's very New York City specific that explains ranked choice voting. Not sure if you folks can translate this, but what I will say is if you want to hear it, you can come over, I guess, back to the English side, but this will just play in one language.
Hi, I'm Mahir, and welcome to my bodega. As you may know, New York City has a new way to vote in special and primary elections. So, how does ranked choice voting work? The next time you vote in a city election, instead of choosing just one candidate, you can rank them all from your first choice to your 5th. Here's how it works. Let's say my bodega is picking its featured snack of the month. So many choices. Which one should I feature? This customer ranks Parker Pretzels as her top favorite. She also ranks her second choice, Mr. Chips, third choice, Chi-Chi Chicharrones, fourth choice, Gladys Gummies, and fifth choice, Puppy Popcorn. Other customers rank their choices as well. If Parker Pretzels is the favorite choice and wins more than 50% of all the first ranked choices, then Parker Pretzels is the winner and is featured as the snack of the month. However, if no snack gets more than 50%, then the least popular snack is eliminated. Sorry, Figgy Bars. The remaining second-ranked choices from customers who chose Figgy Bars are redistributed. So if customers chose chips and chicharrones as second choices, then those 2 snacks receive additional votes. The new totals are counted and the process repeats until there's a winner of the final 2. Congrats, Poppy Popcorn. You're the bodega snack favorite. Back in the real world, before it's time to vote for humans, visit rankthevotelyc.org for more information. Thank you, New York City, for voting and for making these special and primary elections your elections.
All right. I just love the music on that video. All right, so I'm going to show you a sample ballot. I'm going to show you this twice. I think I saw a question about this in the chat. So this is what the ballot looks like, right? We actually pulled this from Board of Elections when they first had their first sample out. So the race is on the top left, okay? And then tell everyone go across your row and down your column. You can only have one bubble per row per column. Right, that is the correct way to do it. We will have multi-page ballots, like what Valerie said. So the first one is back and front, and that is ranked. And the second one is non-ranked, and that is for judicial and DA races. All right, now I'm going to show you an actual election so that you get a better idea of how this whole thing works. So I already went ahead and pre-filled my ballot. Okay. So I'm voting for the most influential New York City woman, past and present. So as you can see, it's one column, one row, one bubble. Okay. That's my new tagline. All right, so here are my candidates in ranked order. I'm going to submit my ballot and I'm going to review the results. I hope you all participated as well. So there were 482 people that participated in this election. There were 10 candidates and 7 rounds of counting. So Shirley Chisholm by far has the highest lead in the first round. So she has 174 votes, okay? This looks like it's her election, but we wanna make sure that no one else can, take the steal. So we start by counting this like any other election. You start by counting just first choice votes. So Mary J. Blige is at the bottom and she has 7 votes. So she will be eliminated and these 7 votes will be transferred to voters' next favorite choice. Okay. So as you can see, Madam C.J. Walker and a few others got those 7 votes. Bella is going to be eliminated. Those 13 will be transferred. We see RBG got some, Eleanor got some, Cardi B eliminated and those votes transferred. This process will continue until there are just 2 candidates left. We see that Shirley Chisholm led all the way through and has 266 votes. What this simply means is that, well, I'll give you a statistic before I say that. So 70% of the time, the person that is leading in the first round is more than likely going to take the race and go through to the last round. So Shirley won, RBG is trailing right behind. This was the threshold, 242. That was the 50% plus 1 mark. One other thing I will mention is that it says exhausted vote 14. Here is kind of grayed out. See, I couldn't even read it. It was kind of light. So exhausted votes 14, what that simply means is that there were 14 folks who decided that they were not going to use all of their rankings. So there was nowhere for their vote to be transferred to, so their ballot was exhausted. Okay, so that is what an exhausted ballot is, and that's what these 14 votes are below. So now I will go back and share the rest of this presentation, and we are almost done. So the counting of rounds kicks in if no candidate reaches the 50% plus 1 mark of the first choice votes. That official winner will not be declared until all votes are counted, including early election day and affidavit and absentee votes. Once everything is counted, it will fold or be folded into the final results. So why should voters use their rankings? They have more choice and more power. Before, it was just candidate A or candidate B. Now you can finally say, okay, my candidate A did not win, but I was able to rank candidate G and Z because I kind of like them. And so that gives us more power because we still have a say in who's elected. So you can finally vote your conscience without worrying that you're wasting your vote. And should you decide to rank additional candidates, that will never hurt your favorite candidate because we're only looking at number 2 and number 3 if your favorite candidate is eliminated. And that's if. So frequently asked questions. How many candidates do I rank? You can rank up to 5 candidates, as many or as few as you would like. You can still vote for 1 if that is your preference. Do I have to use all 5 rankings? No, your vote will still count if you only rank 1 or a couple of candidates. But remember, a ranked choice voting ballot will work as hard for you as long as it can. But if your candidate, your one candidate that you put there is eliminated, then your ballot will be exhausted. So adding or using additional rankings is beneficial to some extent. But of course, you want to know this person. You want to like them. If you don't know them, you don't like them, you do not have to rank them. All right. Can I rank a candidate more than once? It does not help your favorite candidate to rank them more than once. We are not using a point system. So this can possibly invalidate your ballot. If you are doing this, I know Valerie gave us some good tidbits on this, so I won't talk through it too much because she will probably help with the Q&A. But if you are in person, you can fix your ballot. If you mail in your ballot and you filled it out incorrectly, there is no curing process. So your ballot will not be counted. So it's important that you follow the instructions on how to fill out your ballot. We want to make sure that every vote counts and every voice is heard. Does it hurt my favorite candidate to have a second choice? No, I mentioned this before. Only looking at your second or third choice if your first choice is eliminated. All right, so everyone always asks me for talking points about RCV. These are the points right here. So core messaging, fundamentals of RCV. Starting in 2021, New York City voters will have the option to rank their top 5 candidates in our local primary and special elections for mayor, comptroller, public advocate, borough president, and city council. If voters still want to vote for just one candidate, they absolutely can. That is your right. Okay, so you can use your rankings if you want to, but you do not have to. So the why for RCV, it equals more power for voters. So by ranking, voters don't need to worry about wasting their vote, accidentally helping elect someone that they don't support, by splitting the vote, or by someone being elected with less than a majority. So this concludes our presentation. We will go into Q&A, but I will say that all of our materials are located on the website in 13 different languages, including the languages that are here currently being translated. And we are offering these trainings to the community at large. So if you know someone or a group that would like a presentation, please let us know. You can send an email to info@rankthevotelyc.org. All right. So Lisa, I will pass it over to you to see if there are any questions or however you want to continue the program.
Okay, thank you, Debbie. Thank you for sharing that information with us about ranked choice voting. I hope you all got the gist of our new way of voting for New York City candidates. Now, we would like to open the floor for questions. If you haven't already submitted your questions, you may do so in the chat. If you are on Facebook or YouTube, you may submit your questions in the comments section. We have this evening Rebecca LaFawn from the Office of Assemblymember Rodney Spichard Hermelin, and we have Robin Redmond, both who will be taking questions this evening. So we would like to start with Rebecca. Rebecca, please make sure you unmute.
Thank you, Lisa. Hi, everyone. My name is Rebecca. So the first question I'm going to ask is a question that was put in the Zoom chat regarding being registered as an independent. So either Valerie or Debbie, you can answer this question. The question is, if you're registered as an independent, is it too late? I'm assuming too late to change parties to participate in the June election?
Yes, I'll take that. The deadline to change your party affiliation was February 14th. So if a voter, it is too late to change your party now. The current primary election that we have scheduled for June is for registered Democrats, Republicans, and there's a district in Queens where there's a conservative contest.
Okay, I will ask another question. So for the ranked choice voting, can you write in a candidate?
So for ranked choice voting, yes, you can write in a candidate. I also see that there are some call-in folks, and I just want to make sure that they have opportunities in case they want it in Haitian Creole. So oui, ou ka ekri yon nom yon moun nan bulletin si yo pa deja nan bulletin. And it's
Okay.
just one write-in. I will clarify that because I think I got that question earlier today. Like, can I write in 3? It's just one writing. So yon sel fwa pou ekri yon nom.
We have another question. Does this system always result in a majority win?
So, great question. No, but from the research that I have done, I have seen that there is, majority of the time, there is a 50% plus one, a majority win. Other places, their majority is just 50%. There's some others who's different, but whoever's the highest vote getter is essentially that winner.
Thank you. We have a question. Who can I go to on election day if I don't understand my choices?
So we have poll workers available at all sites on election day if you have any questions. Now, they can't assist you in terms of candidate selection, but if you have questions about the process, then they are there to assist.
Now, we'll just translate that really quickly. Si ou pa kompon yon bagay ou bezwen aide, le ou rive pou vote, ou met mande yon poll workers yo, pou yo ka ede ou assiste ou avec bulletin ou question sa ou ka genye. Are there any additional questions?
So yes, there are. How long will it take to get election results? And because of ranked choice voting, will results take longer to come back?
Valerie, say it with a smile.
So patience is a virtue. So yes, the process is obviously the first thing that we're waiting on is the New York State Board of Elections has to certify the software for us to use in the elections that I referred to before, the special elections that took place. We actually, the staff, a bipartisan team of board staff, actually had to hand count those elections because the software was not certified to tabulate electronically. So we are confident that will be that they will certify that software. I think there was a question regarding translation, so maybe I should hold on. Debbie, I think, did they want you to translate that?
Yes, so the question was about how long to get the software, the results, right? So, question c'est combien de temps la prend pour nous prendre résultat élection? So, n'a prend un petit temps, presque une semaine après élection pour nous gagner résultat élection.
Okay. Then there's a second part to that is then there are deadlines that are hard, that are set in election law, and the Board of Elections has to wait to receive every valid absentee ballot before we can start going through the rounds. So that means that a person that voted via absentee or military, their vote has to count. And we cannot begin that process of opening those absentee ballots until the 29th, which is 29th of June. That's the first deadline. Debbie, what I can say?
So, se pou yo retan yon deadline ka prive 29 juin pou yo ka louvri tout bulletin yo ki te moun te voye pa mail.
And then there was legislation that was passed, again, that allows a voter who made a mistake on his or her absentee ballot envelope to cure that ballot. And the last date that a voter can cure his or her ballot is July 9th.
So, denye fwa pou ka arrange yon bulletin, sou te fe yon mistake sou li, se 9 juillet.
So we are trying to manage expectations. The first step is actually getting that software certified. We, the Board of Elections, meet every Tuesday. Our commissioners meet weekly. They're live streamed. The meetings are live streamed. And once the state board certifies, we will then begin to report on how we are going to be reporting out results on election day and thereafter.
So, Valerie, I do have a question. Sorry if I'm cutting administrators in this group, but I heard something earlier or late last week, which was that there was a bill that went through Senate and Assembly that allowed the ballots to be open.
The images.
And yeah, and can you talk about that? I don't know if that's.
It hasn't passed, so we comply with obviously with all legislation once it passes. And at this point, there are multiple bills on the floor, but we can't comment until they are in fact enacted and signed by the governor.
We have another question. How does the runoff work?
So there is no runoff with ranked choice voting. It eliminates runoff. So essentially we have an instant runoff.
Okay, so then we have another question. Can I rank my favorite candidate 5 times?
No, you cannot rank your favorite candidate 5 times. It's 1 vote, 1 row, 1 column, 1 bubble. If you do that, it complicates the work that Valerie does. If you are in person, of course you can fix that, which just means you have to be in the poll, the machine a little longer, but in the poll site itself longer, so you can fix your ballot. If you are doing this by mail, like Valerie said, your ballot can be, it's the same as voting for your candidate as number 1, right, Valerie? Is that what it does now? So it's the same as voting for number 1, but this, you no longer have a second choice.
Exactly.
So it's a disadvantage to you if you do that. So question c'est, est-ce que vous pouvez voter pour yon moun 5 fois? Non, pas qu'à faire ça, seulement pour voter yon seule fois dans bulletin. Valerie, were you going to add to that?
No, just to reiterate that. There are the messages on the scanners itself are for an overvote or an undervote, a blank ballot rather. So if a voter were to go in, and although Debbie explained it and we've been trying to reiterate it to voters, if you were to vote for multiple candidates in one particular ranking, the scanner would notify you. And then you can reject the ballot and a poll worker would give you another one. They would void it out and give you another one. But that opportunity is for in-person ballots, in-person voting. If you made a mistake on your ballot and you had enough time to request another absentee ballot, you could do so. But again, it is more difficult when a voter makes a mistake on his or her absentee ballot.
So how does a person request a ballot in a different language?
So there are, for the New York City Board of Elections, according to our language assistance program, and these designations will likely change, will definitely change, I should say, after the most recent census. But as it stands now, the covered languages are English, Spanish, Chinese, Korean, and Bengali. And that's where applicable. So, for example, there are parts of Queens that have all five languages on the ballot. In Staten Island and the Bronx, for example, the ballot is English and Spanish only. In Brooklyn, you're looking at English, Spanish, and Chinese, and Manhattan as well.
Thank you very much.
But I want to say, but that doesn't mean that a voter that needs assistance in a language that's not covered by the Board of Elections, you can bring in someone to help you. The only restriction is it cannot be your employer or your union representative, though that's in election law. But again, if you need assistance and it's in a language that's not covered by the New York City Board of Elections, you can bring someone to help you.
So I'll just translate that really quickly. Sou bezwen asistans le ou al vote en ou pa kompren bulletin nan anglais ou ka mande ou fe yon moun vini avec ou pou al vote. Yo ka montre ou ki jan pou fe tout bagay, but yo pa ka di ou ki es pou vote.
Great. Thank you so much. I just wanted to read, because in case someone can't see this, there was a question in the chat box of, where can I find a list of candidates running for the ballot for each race?
So you can visit vote.nyc, or the direct website is findmypollsite.vote.nyc, and you would put in your address and you will see a sample ballot, a list of the candidates as well.
So I put that in the chat as well. And I also put the direct link to voting.nyc/meet the candidates. You can click it, save it, bookmark it if you would like. Yes.
One thing that I didn't add, and if I can, I think they want you to translate that.
Yes, sou bezwen informasyon de moun kap kouri pou eleksyon sa, ou ka visite link yo ki nan chat la. So find mypollsite.nyc ou met ale nan voting.nyc et pou ka jwen informasyon de tout moun kap kouri.
I also wanted to add, since we have, since we transitioned to this voting system back in 2010, we have for voters with disabilities at each of our early voting and election day site, there is a ballot marking device, which is a device that is designed for a voter with disabilities to be able to vote independently and privately. And the machine itself has multiple accessibility devices, ranging from a sip and puff device, which allows a voter who lacks manual dexterity to go up and down the ballot. There's a Braille keypad and their headphones. So if a voter needs assistance or has a physical disability, he or she can mark their ballot using the ballot marking device.
Okay, thank you. There's another question in the chat box. It is clear how to vote with
Sorry, Robin?
Yeah?
We move to the next question. Can you translate what she just said, Debbie?
About
the ballot marking device.
Soube assistance nan poll site la koto pal vote, gen yon machine ki ka ede ou, si ou pa ka tende, si ou pa ka we gen assistance nan poll site la ki ka ede ou pou we ki non ki ekri nan bulletin yo, informasyon ki nan bulletin yo.
Okay, thank you. It is clear how to vote with ranked choice voting. Well, can you go over again how candidates are eliminated?
And I think it's always easier to show this rather than explain it. So I'm just going to reshare the screen. And what happens is the lowest vote getter will be eliminated and those votes will be transferred. And that's just what it is. So candidates are eliminated if they don't have enough votes. Their ground game was not strong enough. They didn't speak to enough voters. And so voters don't know who they are. And so they're eliminated and those votes are transferred to another candidate who that voter may have liked. And it just goes until there are two candidates left, a part of our charter revision for this new electoral process tells us that we have to go to the final two candidates. I hope that answered your question, Gail. And so I'll just really quickly say that in Haitian Creole, dans élection ça, nous parler n'a privé dans dernier de mounio qui est cap privé cap joindre plus vote, de mounio qui arrivé jusqu'à moun cap privé jusqu'à dernier place. So moun cap win the election, c'est moun qui gagne plus vote.
And our final question of the evening. So again, thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you very much to our presenters. But our last question is, who can a voter contact if they have further questions?
So we have the New York City Board of Elections. We have a landing page that has a lot of frequently asked questions. We have a PSA in the covered languages. So you could always visit vote.nyc. I am the director of communications for the New York City Board of Elections. I will put my email if you have any questions, or if you'd like for us to come out and attend one of your events or virtual forums. I'm more than happy to schedule. So again, and we also have a phone bank. So 866-VOTE-NYC, where we have trained phone bank staff that could answer frequently asked questions as well.
Si vous besoin assistance, vous voulez relais ou mettre relais 866 vote NYC. Et puis, vous avez une assistance là, madame qui t'a fait parler, c'est un monde qui fait communications avec Board of Elections.
Okay, now we'll pass it back to you, Lisa.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for sending your questions earlier to us or placing them in the chat. I hope that we've been able to answer all of your questions for you this evening. Just to share quickly what we were doing there. As mentioned, we had 3 different translations, and we have 3 different rooms where those translations were taking place. But some of you who are in the English room, which is the main room, you notice that we translated in Haitian Creole. That is because the Haitian Creole translator in that room had to leave. So we had Debbie step in to answer the questions and translate in Creole. So thank you for your patience for all of that. So I hope that you all now have a good understanding of how ranked choice voting works. And we hope that you can now walk into the polls with confidence. We would like for you to share whatever you have learned today with everyone in your circle. It's so important that we all know how to move forward with ranked choice voting so that the votes that we intend to cast will count. I would like to thank our presenters, Valerie Vasquez-Diaz and Debbie Lewis. I would also like to thank our translators, Susie, Nerlin, and Naushin. And on behalf of Assemblymember Rodney Spichard Hermelin and Robin Redmond, thank you for joining us this evening, and have a great night.
Okay, no one
Thank
has
you.
been nominated, so this position will